I'm going to be making my stays now, and this is the stay for my gusset zipper. I'm doing it out of some Pellin. This is like a 700 series. I've actually forgotten exactly which one it was, but each one is so different, and it's really up to the designer to decide what they're going to use. But this is something I had hanging around, and so I just decided to use it because I decided to revise my bag, and in revising it, everything changes. So when you're making a bag and all of a sudden you got another brilliant idea in the middle of it, it changes everything. So instead of this bag being raw edge, I'm using turns in certain parts of it. And I'm changing the design a little bit because I'm trying to give it to my sister for her birthday. And that is only a few hours away because she's visiting sunny Las Vegas. So when you're making your stay, you're using your master pattern, and this is my master pattern. And then there you end up with your stay, and a stay can I always like to say a stay can be made in any material, as long as you understand the function of a stay. And if you don't necessarily have Bontex, which I have a lot of, but because I'm going to be turning this bag, I don't want to really use it at the moment. But basically, a stay can be used or can be made from a lot of different materials, from bonded leather to, of course, Pellin to Bontex. So it just depends on what the designer, finds that's going to suit your needs. And since we're all making these at home, I really try to use the things that are most convenient. So here's our stay. We're going to go ahead and cut our window out of this. And I think I got to cut the top here. Cut this top off. Then we're going to cut our window out of here for our zipper. And because I'm turning this, I'm not going to have this raw edge. I'm going to be, as I go along, figuring it out how to work. So because it's not going to be raw edge, I want to bring my zipper all the way up here to the top now. And so that when this is when the lining and everything meets up in here, it's nice and finished. So, but first I'm going to test my idea. And anytime you change your pattern in the process, you have to change the whole way you think about putting the bag together, because how it goes together changes. Things that were supposed to meet up and connect no longer do. So you're going to end up having to make adjustments along the way. So this is where my zipper is going to go in here, and this is basically going to be put into my stay like this. I mean, into my pattern like this. Then I'm going to cut this out, turn it, and then put my zipper in there. But then I have to figure out what to do about the top. So I'm going to do all that, go figure out what to do about the top, and come back and tell you. As you can see, I switched out my stay. I was using some Pellin, but now I'm using this kind of like a woven backing that I got from a company named Carr in Missouri. And it's pretty nice. It comes in a lot of different weights, and it also is an adhesive, self-adhesive, or fusible. and and it works pretty good for a stay every now and then. I don't use it a lot, but I ran out of Pellin, so I got to use something. And one of the things about being a home sewer or a bag maker is you got to be flexible and use the things that are around you, and you can still come up with a fairly good, uh, a good quality bag. I am using my knife, literally my knife, and I like it better than my bone. I do have a bone. I've had it for over 20 years, 22 years, something like that. But I tend to like my, I tend to like my old trusty kitchen knife, butter knife, old-fashioned butter knife too. So anyway, this is where we are. This is our stay, and this will come off. So this is our gusset zipper. So all I have to do now is I'm going to cut my zipper open and put it in, and then I'll be ready to go on to the next part. So I'm going to go ahead and cut, but before I cut this, I'm going to show you actually what I've already done. I've already done this part right here where I've attached my gusset, and I turned it and attached it. Now on the original bag I did a raw edge, and sometimes when you're doing turned edges and stuff, it gets a little bit more complicated. You really have to think out the process, what's going to fit here, where. I got a few loose strands there I'll take care of, but this is where we are now. And then I'm going to take this, and after I've cut out my for my zipper, and place this in here like this, and I'm gonna glue it down because that's pretty much the best way to keep it stable while you're sewing. And this is the way our bag is starting to shape up. Put my pocket in. I've already on this side put in my zipper gusset, so I'm gonna do a little touch up there because some of my black thread came through because I was in such a hurry. I didn't change my bobbin. And so that's pretty much where we are at this point in our development here. And so I'm going to go ahead and sew this in. I'm going to put my other zipper in. And actually, when I come back, I'll actually show you how to put the zipper in and attach your zipper pleat. And it's really not that hard, just a little different. You got to make sure what you're cutting, when you're cutting, and how you're cutting. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and cut out my window for my zipper. And get ready to get it ready. And hopefully everything will come out nicely. Now you want to make sure that you're going to have enough room for your zipper to slide easily. So we're going to go ahead and take that out. And this is not a solid glue, even though I used a fusible. I didn't really iron it to the leather, although you can get away with that. And I've heard a couple people say that when they use a fusible and they turn the bag, that they get all the wrinkles. And one day I was looking at the news, because I'm always looking at the news, and this was years ago. And they were interviewing Kate Spade when she was just starting out, and they asked her, some of her little tricks, and one of her tricks was that as she was making her bags, and at this time, if I remember right, she was making them out of the house like we do, and I could have cut that a little bit better. And she said what she did to get her bags nice and smooth was to use a hot air or a hair dryer, and that relaxed the glue, and the wrinkles would come out, or she would kind of use a steamer if she was doing fabric. So anyway, this is how this is going to set in. And then these are going to be my pleats, my pleated zipper, the lining part of this, so that it will expand, so that it will span open to 4 inches. I'm going to go ahead, and I've already skived my leather here a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this, and then I'm going to put it to the back, and I'm going to show you that. Let me go ahead and cut my stays for this, and then I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we'll go on from there. I'm making some stays here. Well, I didn't make these stays. Actually, these stays are over 20-some years old. Used to be a company in called Gilmore and Quinn in New York, and when you were making bags and you needed stays, they would cut them for you and charge you by the gross. So this is where my notches, you can see my notches there, here, and here, and of course I kind of over-skived, which happens sometimes when you are skiving by hand. So I'm going to add a little glue to this. I got my length. And when Gilmore and Quinn was up and running, you could order like just gross. They sold them by the gross, 144 for like 20 bucks. And they would cut all your stays. So when you were doing bags, all you had to do was measure and cut, and you were in business. Made your work a lot easier. So I'm thinking that's about what I need. So I'm just going to glue these, and then when you want to straighten them out, you just, and you got it. So let me put a little rubber cement on these and get those in place. And then we'll turn that and go from there. Oops. Camera's moving a little bit there. Sorry about that. My head hit it. Okay, so you put a little glue on that. Give it a couple seconds to dry. And then you can place those on your piece and then turn. You use rubber cement because you don't really need a permanent glue. You just want to hold things in place until you're ready to go. So we'll do that to our other one. And this is why your notches really are really helpful when you're making handbags, because they tend to tell you approximately where things, or absolutely where things should be. That looks a little big there for 3/8. Let me pull it over a little bit. Okay, that looks like about right. And hopefully we will hopefully that'll be a 3/8 turn, which I think it is. Oh, it's a little bit more. So you just gotta make sure your notches are in the right place. After 20 some years of doing this, I can almost tell where I'm at. Okay, there we go. Then we're going to apply a little bit more glue. And turn. And put this in place. Because you're going to put your... You're going to put the zipper in between your turned gusset here. I kind of don't like the placement of this one, so I'm going to get it a little bit more where I think it should be. Yeah, it looks more like it to me. No, up a little bit. Okay. And so after we do this, as I said, we'll turn and go from there. So every time you change your pattern, oh, let's put our zipper in place. I put a little glue here. And so now I want to go ahead and put the zipper in place and get it up here to the top. And I'll turn those corners back on themselves. Let's see what we got here. Let's see if I can get this in a little bit more centered. That's looking kind of good. Make sure you have some room for your slider. To go back and forth easily. We're looking pretty good here. So I do it like that a couple times. Okay, and there we go. Then we're going to turn this real quick and put these in place. And I'll show you how to, we're going to go ahead and do that. And the purpose of your stays, even though you go, well, why did you skide and then put this thick piece of paper in there or on text? That's because you want a really smooth, clean, straight edge. And if you're trying to do that with your fingers, it might not happen. So now we're going to take and go like this. Well, we got to turn our top here. Whoops. Glue everywhere, folks. We're going to turn our top, put that in place like this, all right? Then we're going to match, you got to match it up on the other side, and then you stitch this in place, like this. And then you stitch this in place. So it'll go like this. And you want to make sure that what's on your other side, what's on the outside, will match up so that when you stitch these, you'll catch both of them at the same time. And so that's what you're trying to do. So we're going to let our glue dry, turn our other stay, and then we're almost ready to sew this puppy together. Now, you know I don't show you sewing, so I finally got my zipper, this little pleated zipper in. And so what you do basically is you sew your sides. Once you've made your pattern, you just sew it in, sew the zipper in between it like this. Sew it in there between it. In this case, I turned. I would suggest if you're doing leather, do raw edge. It's easier than turning because your enemy is thickness. And so then once you've done that, you bring these two pieces together, and then you sew your seam allowance, and then that closes up your pleat, and then you have it. Okay, so that's the way you do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and attach it to the other side of the bag, put the pockets on and the straps. Well, I'm just getting ready to glue this in place so it'll stay. I'm going to sew it. And even if you got leather, fabric, you should do it too. Go ahead and put a little glue here. Glue is the leather man's best friend. It beats all other things. There is a latex glue you can also use. It doesn't quite smell as bad, but I use this little rubber cement and that works pretty good for me. So we'll let that dry, stick it together and sew it. Then we'll put the pockets on. Okay. Well, the other great thing about using rubber cement on leather is that it comes right off. So you don't have to worry about damaging anything. And so there, now we're going to sew that in. Now we got both sides on. Get all this stuff out of the way. Starting to look good. It ain't easy though. Listen, I make so many mistakes when I'm making a bag, so when you're making mistakes, I just threaten to throw myself out in traffic, so don't be like me. So here it's looking pretty good. We have our gussets on now, so the only thing left really to do is put the other side on, and of course put our pockets in. So we're going to come back and do that. We're just going to get them all squared away and show you how they work. So here are my little gussets for my pocket. So I'm just going to glue them right in place over here. And because they're raw edge, I'll probably put a little edge paint on them. And then I'm going to glue them down. But first I'm going to put something over this, over my magnetic snap, put a piece of a little leather over that. Then put these in place. And then go ahead and sew. So I'm going to sew my gusset in place first. Right, I'm going to do that. And then I'll sew because I'm not going to put a lining in this, then I'll just sew the pocket to the bag. Now here is my stay for my flap, and just because I wanted to make sure my flap bends the way I want to, so I'll put a little stay in there. And then when I sew it, I'm going to take these out right here before I sew it, and I'll just pull these out because they're really there just to hold the stay together while you're placing it. So I'll just cut and pull those out. And when you're doing stays are, to me, really important. They can really give you control over your design. So I consider them just one of those really fabulous little things about learning to make a quality handbag. And then, the principle behind this, really, the whole thing is uh, path of least resistance. So if there's nothing there, then of course it's going to bend or round out or whatever. Everything follows the path of least resistance. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and sew this together. And before I place them on the back, I'll come back and show you where we're at. We also have to make our straps.